Welcome, everybody. Thank y'all so much for coming today. I'm Kim Doherty. I'm the president of the Legal Industry Council for IFMA. And today we have a great presentation from Forest Solutions and Maptician, who are two fabulous sponsors for the LIC Council with IFMA. And we're excited to have them today to present to us. So I wanted to welcome our LIC members, and those are friends and component leaders and folks that we also invited and engaged through IFMA Engage, so that they could attend today's session. Just a few little housekeeping things for everyone. We are going to record this session, and for all of our facility directors and our law firms throughout the country, sometimes get pulled away on emergencies and last minute issues that we want to be able to make it available to them. So we are going to record, and then they both Forrest and Maptician have agreed to let us post on the LIC's YouTube channel the presentation, so they can watch the on demand later if needed. So we'll be sharing that with all of our members again. Thank you all so much for joining us today. For those, if you're in attendance, everyone's on mute. You will be able to go through on the chat section if you have any questions throughout the presentation, but we will do a quick Q&A at the end of the session. So, so don't be surprised if everybody's just on mute for this session or for the presentation. The other one I wanted to mention was we will also be doing another session or another webinar with Maptician on Tuesday, April 18th. We've also posted that on our LinkedIn, which is through the Legal Industry Council of IFMA. Ashley Alberry with Maptician will be doing that presentation for us. So that'll be Tuesday, April 18th. So we're excited to have that one. But for now, one of the biggest challenges that I know in our law firms back in 2020 when the pandemic hit, most law firms were, a lot of law firms were familiar with remote working. And because of the vast number of offices and attorneys throughout the country or globally that were working already somewhat remotely, occasionally here and there. But the biggest challenge and important thing for law firms for us was our culture and our closeness and our mix of interactions with our attorneys and staff in our offices. So the pandemic obviously threw everyone into a new way of thinking, and obviously pushed everyone to consider that more remote option. So one of the things that has been a challenge has been the return to office. And the great thing today will be the successes that we'll be able to hear from some folks from Forrest and Maptician on how they can have some of the successes that they have seen that they're going to share with us today, and then some of the technology that can be implemented in the hybrid work office, so that we can. So we wanted to share that with everyone today. So thank you all so much for attending. I'm gonna, I'll go on mute. I want to be able to give Ala and Anthony an opportunity to introduce themselves. And like I said, we'll do a Q&A at the end, but please feel free to, the chat box is being monitored so we can make sure to get any of your questions or comments during the session. So thank y'all so much. We're excited to have y'all here. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you, Kim, for that wonderful introduction. And we are grateful to be, a member of the LIC. We're grateful to be a sponsor. We thank you, for everything you do, for the members and for welcoming us as a sponsor. We're absolutely delighted to be here. And thanks for everyone for taking, the hour away from their day to join us here. Anthony and I will do our best to make it as productive as possible. Simply by sharing, some of the learnings, that we've had. We've worked with hundreds of clients, that are kind of navigating this transition, and we thought hopefully it would be helpful, to share, some of the learnings and what we see from, different between, firms that have been very successful in doing so versus others that are maybe a little bit behind. So just to start with a quick introduction, my name is Ala Pasha. I am the CEO of Maptician. And I've been in the technology and software and technology for about 25 years, very similar type products and services that we provide at Maptician, all primarily focused on software. And as far as Maptician is concerned, we kind of started, a few years ago with the idea of simplifying and making space planning and space management easier, so you can get away from, the obsolete, drawings that you do in CAD. You go print it on a large printer, and by the time you print it, it's probably obsolete already because someone just moved their desk, or some things that change in the floor plan. So that was kind of the premise of how we started Maptician. And then kind of going through the pandemic, when we started, we had, a few law firm clients. We absolutely liked, the fit of our product within the legal industry. And, we kind of, as you would expect with the pandemic and people going away from the office, we kind of started building some innovation around hybrid. And by being, affiliated with several, law firms, we kind of learned very quickly that, conference room management is something that's very important for law firms. So today at Maptician, we offer kind of, it's really one product, but you can think of it as three different areas that we cover. Number one is managing your space and occupancy, providing you with analytics. How much space are you using? How much space do you need? Those kind of things. And then, managing the hybrid, operation, which, some folks call it hoteling, some folks call it hybrid. We'll hopefully elaborate a little bit on that and give you some color around that. And then the last piece is conference room management. So again, delighted to be here, and looking forward to a successful, webinar. With that, I'll turn it over to Anthony.
Thanks, Al, and thanks, Kim, for the introduction.
Sure.
And also, I should have pointed out, we're also a customer of Maptician, as well as a partner of Maptician. So
that's right.
I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Forest Solutions. Forest Solutions is a provider of on-site outsourcing, which predominantly consists of office services, document services, and workplace experience, hospitality type services. We also have a staffing division. So most of our offerings are based around people and process with some technology. I've been working in the legal industry for 25 years, combination of outsourcing, legal research, legal technology, and as I'm back in outsourcing now, obviously not from here originally, started in London and moved to the US about 8 years ago. So I'm going to get into the presentation. I think we'll start with an overview of how we're doing in terms of return to office. And I'll just start by saying I'm not coming from a position of recommending return to office or not recommending return to office, or not recommending any type of hybrid solution. The purpose of today's presentation is to show you what our law firm clients, we work with about 30 law firm clients. We also work with a whole load of investment banks and hedge funds. We did a survey the beginning of this year, and the purpose of today is to really share with you some insights as to what everybody else is doing. I have my personal view on how many days per week everybody should be in the office. With 3 young children, I don't want to spend too much time at home. I don't get any work done, but it does vary. And the purpose of today really is to share what everybody else is doing and really help you get some insight and best practices from some of your peer firms. I'm sure most of you have studied this. If return to office is an important topic, which, judging by the number of people on the call today, it absolutely is. Most of you will have been to the Castle website. Castle is the access swipe system, and they produce reporting almost on a daily basis, and they have specific reporting around law firms. And as their data suggests, law firms have actually managed to get more people back to the office more often than the average. But we're still a long way from where we were before COVID, and we're still a long way in many cases from where we want to. This data is very broad. It does break down by city, but it doesn't tell you how long each day everybody is in the office. So it's a very broad data set. And we wanted to do our survey to really help better understand that information. ALM did a survey to ask how lawyers felt about their firm's return to office policies. And this big yellow chunk here are lawyers that were not happy with the return to office policies. Most have been asking for more flexibility. Most have been pushing back on mandates and strongly recommended. And we'll dig into that in a minute. And the two main reasons people don't want to come back to the office, based on most of the surveys, one is it's the commuting time, it's a waste of time. And secondly, especially in the early days of return to office, the offices are half empty. And if you can't ensure that people will be there when you get there, your team will be there, or other people from the firm will be there, it's a risk that you're taking actually coming into the office, hoping to bump into people. So we'll talk about how specifically with technology, some of those things are being addressed. I'm looking out on the chat for questions as we go. Please do reach out with questions, but right now we're going to do a quick poll, and hopefully someone with better technology skills than me is going to make it work. Is it up?
It's up.
Okay, good. So we'll start with, how many days a week is your firm expecting you to be in the office? And that might be a mandate. That might be a strongly recommended. That might be an unwritten rule. It might be a written rule. But what's the expectation? And as you might have guessed, the next question is more about what's the reality. But what's the expectation? Not sure who's driving the poll, but
let's give about 5 more seconds.
Thanks, Dylan. Okay. Okay, so the expectation for most, as you might expect, is in that 2 to 3 day band. Actually, quite a high number of people here with 5 days per week in the office. Certainly, our research suggests that that's not as familiar, not as common as we see it on here. But that 4% expecting 0 is in line with our research as well. So next question. That's the expectation. The question is, how many of you think that everybody is complying with the expectations? Are the attorneys complying? Are staff complying? Both attorneys and staff, or none of the above?
And we'll give about a few more seconds. Almost everyone's in.
Okay. I don't think that this will be a surprise either, the answers to this.
Can't wait to see it.
So staff are applying, are complying, and attorneys are not. In very few cases are both attorneys and staff, and none of the above. But the general consensus that we see across the industry is that staff do comply, attorneys don't. And in many cases now, we're actually seeing firms implement different policies for staff and attorneys. So I mentioned about our survey. So we got responses from about 20% of the AmLaw 200, so just over 40 of the AmLaw 200. So it's a decent data set, mainly COOs, CAOs, directors of admin, and HR leaders. The key questions: what's driving your office return? What are your return to office goals? Are you using mandates, or are you strongly advising? Are you happy with the results? And what are the main initiatives that you're implementing to achieve your return to office goals? We call it return to office goals, but you could say your hybrid working goals. We are pretty close, I think, to finalizing this report, and you'll find it on our website in the next couple of weeks. So we'll ping a note to everybody when that's ready, and you'll be able to download it. some of the anecdotal feedback from some of the respondents on the left here. We heard from multiple firms that there's a growing tendency to set different goals for staff and for attorneys, and that's quite controversial. I don't, as I say, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with any of these points. This is survey information. Another bit of feedback we got from a COO in New York is that they've tried lots of different initiatives. Some work better than others, but there's no single initiative that gets everybody back. And certainly our research agrees with that, and we'll get into that in a second. And then the last anecdotal feedback we got, and we got this from multiple clients and prospects, that 1 or 2 days a week, their goals are 3 days plus. 1 or 2 days a week is just not enough to achieve their objectives around mentorship, learning, and creating that kind of culture. 1 to 2 days for many firms just isn't enough, but unfortunately that's pretty much all they're achieving at the moment. So as we already know, the main drivers really have been around culture and mentorship. We did this survey 2 years ago, and productivity and client-driven demands were not anywhere near the top of the list of the reasons why firms were asking attorneys and staff to come back to the office. We're now seeing nearly 40% of firms concerned about productivity. And when you dig into that, most of the concerns are actually productivity from staff rather than attorneys. And perhaps that's the reason why there are more directives around staff returning to the office than attorneys. One of the reasons. But interestingly now, there's also a growing number of firms that their clients are asking them to be in person more, to do more in-person meetings, and to build that relationship with them as they work more and more with them. And I predict that productivity and client-driven reasons are going to continue to grow. As we know from our own survey from 5 minutes ago, 94% of respondents reported that their firm were non-compliant with policies. 94%. That means almost everyone non-compliant. And when you dig into that, the non-compliance varies. So this pie chart, if I start at the top left, 7% of firms told us they had no policy and they were achieving less than 1 day per week in the office. 66% of firms said that they had a 2 to 3 day hybrid recommended policy, which is not mandated, but recommended. And so when you recommend, you get around 1 to 2 days per week in the office. This side of the chart, the left side of the chart, most of these firms reported that they had around average levels of attrition and average levels of days to fill in terms of hiring new staff. Once you get round to the right here, you get into the mandates. 20% of firms have mandated 2 to 3 days per week. They did report high levels of attrition, but they also did report higher number of days per week in the office, which makes sense. And then finally, 7% of firms 4+ days. I think we had nearly 20% on this call that are now mandating 4 or 5 days per week in the office. I think that's pretty high. The firms that mandate 4 or 5 days per week in the office do get the best results, but they are also experiencing the highest levels of attrition. Okay, let's dig into some of the data now. By the way, I think of policies and procedures. When you think of carrot and stick, I think of policies and procedures as kind of the stick. This is the rules. The carrot, if you like, here's the incentives. This is what we're going to do for you to try and attract you back. Can broadly be bucketed into real estate, amenities, the concierge and hospitality staffing, and technology, the flexible workspace technology. So from a real estate perspective, nearly 70% of firms that responded to our survey have made some kind of change to their real estate, whether it be at the lower end, actually relocated, Many actually said they're planning to relocate and really just waiting for leases to end. 20% reduce footprint, and another 20% say they intend to reduce footprint very soon. And many more have redesigned space, added amenities, and just generally made the office a more desirable place to visit, as well as creating more spaces for meeting, for events, for collaboration. And I suspect most of the people on this call will attest to the fact that there's been huge investment in law firm real estate over the last couple of years as one of the many ways to try to attract people back. The number one way to try and attract lawyers back to the office has been offering free food. And as one COO said to me the other day, offering free food now is like making sure that you have working toilets. It's no longer seen as a nice to have, it's seen as a must have. And 70% offering free food. And another COO that I talked to recently, at the end of my presentation, he said, "You had me at barista." The number of law firms that have implemented premium coffee and even barista made coffee in the actual firm itself has skyrocketed. Probably not a big surprise, but actually seeing the data now as we just try everything to try and increase those number of days back into the office, it's pretty clear that food and coffee are key drivers to return to office. And then we look at hospitality. So around 26 have added concierge and 30% have added hospitality, 26 enhanced workplace experience. And what we put this down to is as more and more firms change their building and their layout and they implement new hot desking and hoteling and more meeting rooms and more collaboration space and more events in the morning and more events in the evenings, especially on those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday anchor days, you need more staff to manage those services. And actually this is really one of the key offerings of Forest Solutions. And this is where a lot of our insight comes from in terms of this is what a lot of our clients are doing. And this is one of the reasons why we've added several clients in the last few months who are really looking to, you reinvent the space, and then you want to make sure you've got the layer of service that goes with it to make sure that space works properly. The final piece is technology. And before I pass on to Al, I'll say one of the most surprising statistics from the data that we collected is that 40% of everyone that responded have either added or enhanced their desk and room booking technology just in the last 2 years. Flexible workspace technology is a great place to be at the moment. And with that, I will hand over to Al, who'll talk more about what that means.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Anthony. Great insight. You're gonna have to help me advance the slides, right? So you can go ahead to the next one. So what I'm going to do, hopefully in the next kind of 15 minutes, is to give you, hopefully to support what Anthony has been, talking about from a technology perspective. And to start with, you've heard Anthony say, 40%, added or changed their technology to support the flexible workplace. These are a few other stats from Anthony's survey that 50% of the firms are experimenting or have shifted to hoteling. And you'll hear the words hoteling, hot desking, and apologies for those that don't like these words. It's been one of those very interesting things. We do a presentation, and like Anthony, you're saying, you said you had me at barista. Sometimes people would say, okay, you said hoteling, I don't like you anymore. But it's interesting, we flip-flop between hoteling, hot desking. The main difference really is hoteling is kind of a more organized, where you reserve, you have a spot, you go to your spot. Hot desking is basically, you just show up. It's kind of like grabbing a Starbucks, chair, a Starbucks seat. You go in there and you say, okay, this is my seat. I got it right now. And then there's 33%, have done no change. The interesting thing and the purpose of this is, as you would expect, whenever you have, a new challenge that's presented to you, if you being a facilities manager, you being the head of HR or whatever the case may be, you typically look within what you got, right? Do we have tools today that can support this, right? So the first thing folks go to, like, well, okay, we have Outlook, or Outlook, you can reserve rooms, you can, reserve meetings with people. So it's very interesting. And this is obviously something that we like, that because it shows us there's a lot of, green field out there, that 13% of the firms are using native Microsoft Outlook to manage their scheduling and their hoteling and the transition into the new hybrid or flexible workplace. And for as much as I use my Outlook, I love Outlook, but Outlook is not purposely built, for those kind of things. So just an interesting thing that, there's a lot of companies that are trying, today to kind of squeeze as much as they can out of the tools they got. But one thing to think about is there's a lot of tools that are purposely built, to address exactly the points that Anthony talked about to potentially bring folks back to work. Next slide, please, Anthony. So what we wanted to share with you is kind of what we've done is, we work today with roughly about, 45 or so, law firms. And, outside of that, we work with, technology companies, banks, hedge funds, private equity firms, you name it. So what we'll try to do is to try to gather kind of from our experience in implementing, working with clients to transition into the flexible workplace. What are the things that we've learned? And this is what I wanted to share with you. So if you can go to the next, slide, Anthony, please. So in trying to kind of compress into three elements that we believe, would potentially lead you to a successful transition into a flexible workplace. Number one is purpose. Number two is tooling. Number three is continuous improvement. If I think about, before we go into the details and purpose, we've seen some folks that come in and they say, we ask why you want to do this. And they say, well, we need to reduce our space. So we need to see who's using the space and who's not. And that's totally fine. And we welcome those and we work with them to do this. But when you think about it, we have some folks that say, well, doing this to be ready for the next pandemic. That's okay as well, right? But you're not going to get the value. You're not going to get those number of days. You're not going to get the evolution, that we've seen some firms by having a purpose, by saying, this is the way work is going to be done. This is the new way of working. This to me is no different than having a voicemail as a tool, having email as a tool at work. It's going to get to the point where this is going to become, part of the DNA of how we work. And we're 100% convinced, if that's the case. So our point is we've seen a lot of success from clients that came into it with a purpose and saying, okay, this is a new thing. How do we use this to create more engagement with our folks? How do we use this to better the quality of life of our employees? How do we use this to improve productivity, to attract new talent, right? Trust me, if you put these things together, there is a lot of good that can come out of this. Tooling is just making sure that you have the tools, which we're going to talk to you about it, And then the last piece, I could not, stress it, more importantly, that there is no, as you can see from Anthony's, numbers and stuff, there is no silver bullet. There is no like, hey, just do this one thing, or here's the playbook. We would love to write one of those playbooks. There just isn't one. We can give you probably like 50 of them of how different folks have done different things. So the point that we try to make sure that we build within our tools, and we constantly encourage our clients and our prospects to do, is to continuously improve this. This is not like, hey, we've done it. We got the barista, we got everyone, they can book their seats right now. Where the heck is everybody? How come nobody's showing up, right? You need to continue to find what works for your specific firm, for your culture, for the kind of culture that you're trying to drive. Anthony, if you can go to the next slide, please. So just briefly, we're going to touch on those three, like I said, hybrid is really the future of work. I mean, you can go pick an article, pick a topic. I mean, this is everywhere that this is something. And this is not just in the US, this is globally, especially in places where, as Anthony was saying, where, if you work in London, if you work in Tokyo, if you work in Shanghai, if you work in places like these, your commute is like half of your day or a third of your day, literally a third of your life you're spending going back and forth between work. So if you can get productivity where it needs to be, the culture, the employee engagement, why not, invest in making this easy for you and for your employees? The other thing is, as you're going to see, as Anthony mentioned, that, you can force people to do certain things, but are you going to be able to attract and retain, right? There's always a balancing act. As an employer, I always have to think, decisions I make, whatever, if I'm making a decision on healthcare or how many times people come to work or our 401k, I have to think of it as I have to put on the employer hat as the CEO of the company, but very quickly I put on the employee hat to say, okay, what are they going to say? If I say, guys, healthcare is too expensive, we're going to cut it. Am I going to end up with any employees staying or not? So these are things that, we continually encourage, you to think about it and have a purpose of why you're making this transition. Anthony touched a little bit on the real estate cost. I think there's going to be, it's very interesting because the majority, I would say 90% of the clients we work with right now, their concern is not like, well, okay, I have half the people coming into the office, so I should be able to trim half of my space. How do you help me cut half of my space? Very, very few of our clients, we even have that conversation. The thing is right now is how do we get people back to the office? How do we, if you look at this curve, this is something from Gallup, and this is not just legal. This is across, the United States and all industries. But there is an issue with employee engagement. People are disengaged, when they're not going to the office, when they're not, having the camaraderie and being part of that culture. There is a huge sense of disengaged employees. So the point is, this is something that, we think we're an employer as well. And we think about this very same thing when we say we're a hybrid. Are we seeing the employees enough? What about the folks that work remotely? Are we getting together enough? And then at the end, this cannot be loose. You have to establish what works for what we see. If Anthony talks about the carrot and the stick, and we're not here advocating for one or another, but what we see, the majority of our clients is they go with the carrot, right? Is make the place better, reiterate the values, and then if you can go into the next slide, Anthony, where we see if there was a silver bullet, that we've seen, and I'm not advocating this is, I said, if, you force me to name one, I would say this is it, by basically what we call presence. And this is one of those studies that was done by Harvard Business Reviews this year. And just having been in this business and having worked with, 100 plus clients, that we serve today, I could not be more, in agreement with this thing. This is 74% of employees would go to the office more frequently if they knew their work friends were there. Whatever work friends are, you translate it your own way. But, the same kind of percentage going there if they know their direct team members were there. I have heard this from clients. I've heard this from people. A friend of mine was talking, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. His son is a fresh graduate from a wonderful school. He's working for one of the top 5 consulting companies. He's so hungry to go learn. He said, I go to the office and there's no one there. So the next day, what would you do if you're him? Would you go to the office to double check, to make sure that there's no one there? Or would you just say, let me just stay home and see what I can do from home? So this is like I said, if there was one thing that we've learned from working with our clients, that is absolutely necessary, to drive more people in the office is this presence. All it is simply is when you launch our app, if you're using our presence capability, if you see a picture of someone and a green dot next to it, that means this person is in the office. You can go to tomorrow and say, who's going to be in the office tomorrow? You see who's reserving a desk or an office, tomorrow, and you make your decisions based on this. We've seen this, like I said, if there was one capability in our product that absolutely, we cannot survive without, it would be this presence. But in addition to presence, when you say, okay, we know we're going 3 days a week, or we're recommending 3 days a week, you cannot just leave it open-ended. What if everybody try to show up on Wednesday? Well, and now you don't have enough room for everyone. So, reservations are something very important. We do something with our product that we call scenario planning, and not just we're advocating for our product, but for whatever tool you use. We believe this is something that's important because of the next point that we're going to make, which is a continuous improvement, right? How do you continuously improve if you're not able to look at scenarios, right? So by doing scenario planning, you're able to look at, okay, this works, but maybe we're not seeing enough engagement from the marketing group or from the finance group, and we'll be able to share some of that stuff with you. What is it that we need to do? What are different scenarios and plans that we need to try, to bring folks back to the office? So again, we talked about the purpose, which is, it could be as simple as literally just not doing it. All I'm saying is don't do it to check the box and say, okay, we're now hybrid. You can go put it onto, into our website, and we're going to be able to attract more talent, right? A lot of folks, start with what they have. They try to bring that camaraderie, try to bring that culture of engagement and things like that back. And then, you'd be able to come sit week. This is, again, another thing. It's not like, I'm not a Harvard grad, by the way, and I'm not here promoting Harvard, but, they have good. I love the Harvard Business Review and stats and studies and things like that. And here, this is very true. I mean, there is no consensus right now. And I don't think it's going to be for a long time, call it 5 years or so. I don't think it's going to be, I think the consensus is going to be, if an employer doesn't offer flexibility to their employees, they're going to be challenged. Like I said, I spent 25 years, my entire career in the tech space. Tech has always been hot from an employment perspective. We've always had to be employee friendly, we like it or not. You know what I mean? Because I knew if I have a programmer or a developer that works for me, and if I'm not giving him or her the flexibility that they expect, they're gonna, in a second, go get a job with someone else. There's always technology jobs. So we've learned kind of in our industry how to be flexible while driving, a culture and productivity and everything like that. Now it's kind of becoming more global. It's becoming more, streamlined, if you will, or more generalized, if you will. So one of the things that we would say, as you kind of move into this, exactly some of the points that Anthony had mentioned, you want to measure your productivity, you want to measure your employee engagement. Did we do this for nothing? Did we do this and we need to tweak something? The space utilization is obviously very important. Another thing that's very interesting, and I've heard this from actually a client of ours, and it made perfect sense, that we can sit here and try to get more clients and say, hey, we'll help you cut half of your space, we'll help you save this money, we'll help you save this. The reality is, actually, there is something to be said about not having too much space. If Anthony and I are going to hang out in an office that's built for 150 people, we're going to feel very lonely. If there's a 25 of us in a place for 150 people, we're probably still going to feel very lonely, right? So there is a kind of a balancing act between how big is your space, to where, you want the space to feel like there's buzz, there are people there. You're not sitting there and you have, oh, I got this whole corner of the office to myself today. I don't think that's a good thing. That means probably I should stay home tomorrow. So, measuring employee engagement and productivity, and there's obviously tools, and we have the tools to help you, get there. Managing reservations versus presence. A lot of our clients take a look at this stat, very important. So if Anthony said, I'm making the reservation, I'm going in there tomorrow, he shows up. He does one the day after and he shows up. He does one a day, then he shows up. What if nobody else is showing up? You know what I'm saying? What if, others are not doing the same thing? So these are kind of some of the things that you'll be able to, to measure while you do this. Like I said, I think you constantly, hopefully, use this data and information to constantly adjust and optimize, your hybrid operation. Anthony, turn it over to you. Hopefully this was helpful, folks.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat, which I'll address before I get on to conclusions. But first of all, a question about culture. Are you finding that companies are adjusting their culture definitions based on these new ways of working? If so, how? I think the answer is yeah, absolutely. The probably the biggest change that I've seen over the last couple of years is the rise of this kind of chief people officer rather than a chief HR officer. A people officer being responsible for way more than just HR, human resources, also being responsible for culture and engagement. And the other thing is actually focusing on culture in the office. I don't think you needed to do that when everybody was in the office 5 days per week, and it was, well, probably not 5 days a week. I think most people were already at about 4 days a week by pre-COVID. But pre-COVID, most people were in the office most days, and you were able to run whatever kind of things you wanted to do to enhance or create whatever culture you wanted. I think now, because you have to be so deliberate about the way that you're planning things, firms are increasingly appointing people in roles to oversee that. So I think the answer is yes. I've seen a lot more of these kind of culture-driven roles. And then the other question is about we've not implemented hoteling reservation systems. We've not been able to relocate the majority of our employees. Well, I can tell you that I've seen multiple firms that have introduced the technology that Al was just talking about, not necessarily just to book desks and reserve space, but to let everybody know when they will be in the office.
100%.
And then also allow people to reverse hot desk or reverse hotel their desks. So the technology is not reserved only for a total hot desking environment. The technology actually works with a blend of hoteling, hot desking, and assigned desks and assigned offices.
Exactly right.
So
we're actually, Anthony, if I can add into this, we're working with a large law firm right now that's doing the very same thing. They have plenty of space. Everyone is going to be using their dedicated assigned office, but their biggest issue is understanding who's there today, who's going to be there tomorrow. That's where, like, literally we're launching with them as we speak, and that's the use case, right?
Yeah.
Not thinking about how much space I got, none of this stuff later. First thing is, like, let's see, by understanding who's here and who's not, if we can drive the number of days in the office, and then we'll do the rest from there.
Exactly. If I'm not in the office, my office becomes open to anybody else to use, and you can check online on our Maptician subscription to see whether or not when I'm in the office and when I'm not in the office. So I hope that's helpful. I don't see any more questions in there, so I'll move on to conclusions. So we talked a bit about carrot and stick. What is it, carrot or stick? I think it's a bit of both, and I'm going to attempt to kind of crunch the data that we got from our surveys and give you a bit more insight into why I think it's 60% stick and 40% carrot. I think you can employ different tactics, and different tactics have different levels of success in terms of return to office. And I keep reminding people that if you can get people back half a day a week extra, that's more than 20 days per year, or an extra month per year in the office. So we're thinking more and more in terms of fractions of days and what initiatives deliver in terms of fractions of days in the office. But high level, the law firms, every law firm that I speak to, without exception, still see the office as critical to building culture and creating a work environment for the firm. Every single one, in different ways, and every hybrid policy is slightly different. Every firm talks about driving office presence, driving culture, mentorship, and as I mentioned before, more and more now concerned about productivity, believing that productivity is better managed, or at least better monitored in person. Policies and mandates get you halfway there. That's the stick. Almost get you 60% there. The more stringent your policies and mandates, though, the higher levels of attrition we've seen from firms, and the lawyers especially tend to resist the policies. Results are generally incremental. Each of the initiatives that you implement will deliver some kind of incremental improvement, but if your goal is to get people 4 or 5 days per week in the office, or even 3 days per week in the office, and you don't want to do that with very strict mandates, then the next slide, I think, might be useful. So if it works, here we go. So what we did was we took all the data. This is my last slide, by the way. So and I'll answer the question that just came in from Tammy. Are trends established? Trends are being established. We're on a path. We're on a roadmap, and this roadmap, I think, is a good way of explaining what I think many people are thinking about in terms of office return. It's a combination of things. The data that we've collected, we try to connect firms that have updated real estate only and the return to office data that they've experienced versus firms that have done nothing. And we crunch the data, and this is a very broad range, but typically, if you want your attorneys and staff back in the office 1, maybe 2 days a week, you can pretty much get there with just mandates and policies. If you want slightly more than 1 to 2 days per week, which is what most firms tell me, 2.5 to 3 is kind of the utopia, 2.5 to 3, but you haven't had to mandate their presence, then you do need to start getting into updating real estate, redesigning, and even relocating. Work near to home rather than work from home. The return on investment for updating real estate based on our data gave you the biggest return. The next biggest return actually was from hoteling and hot desking, and specifically the presence technology that Al was talking about. Having a tool that lets you know exactly who's in the office, which day, allows you to plan your week. It allows you to plan the next 2 or 3 weeks. You can work with your whatever team or colleague or whatever is going to be the office to be in a similar location to them. So office technology combined with a fully managed kind of hoteling and hot desking service actually has moved the needle in terms of office return. And then finally, amenities. You had me at barista, free food, wellness, childcare, concierge, hospitality, the white glove service that makes everything work. If you keep layering all these things on, you can get to, based on the results that we're seeing, you can get to 2 or 3 days per week in the office without having to hit everybody with a stick and threaten their bonuses. So I hope this slide and I hope this presentation has been useful. On behalf of Al and myself, thank you. We're open to questions. I think we've still got five minutes or so. So fire away.
Anthony and Ala, we do have one question coming in about attorneys. Maybe this is for you, Ala. Do attorneys have to learn the technology?
Great question, and we get asked that question a lot, actually. So one of the things that specifically around this presence, when we folks ask, do attorneys now have to, not just attorneys, do people have to check in, to make sure that we know that they're there? Do they have to reserve their own things? So the good news is that absolutely not. So typically, everything is automated. So when someone swipes their card to get into the office or just turn on their computer and start working from the office, we mark them as they are in office, regardless if they're an attorney or an associate, and they basically don't have to do anything. The one thing that we've seen that's common is in order for you to see who's going to be in the office kind of tomorrow, next week, those kind of things, they would really have to reserve. Even if an attorney has their office permanently, we would need the reserve to see like they're going to be there. And typically that's delegated to their legal assistants, so the legal assistants, basically they know that, this partner or this attorney is going to be, I know he's in the office, next Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. She would basically go put those as reservations so folks know that, when they're going to be there. So good news is that it's fully automated. Yeah.
Let me add to that answer as well, because I do think that part of the answer is about service. At Forest Solutions, we manage a couple of tax and accounting firms that are 100% hot desking and hoteling. Some of those people come to the office once in a blue moon. Some are in every day, but many of them have forgotten how to log in and how to book their desk, or they get there and they don't know what they're doing. So these particular clients have loaded not just technology, but also with the concierge staff to greet people as they come in, to help them with whatever bookings they might have, train them if they want to be trained, or if they don't ever want to see the software, they don't have to. But I do believe that if you try to implement the technology and then put everyone through training and cross your fingers that that's it's a bit of a recipe for failure. So it is, I think, especially with with our industry, having technology blended with service is critical for success.
Well, we have one more, since we have a couple of minutes. Just a question about location and firm size. Do either of these factor into what you're both talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we've absolutely seen that firms in the big cities where people are commuting in using trains or even trying to drive in through the traffic, it's less popular to come to the office, and you have a harder task to get people in, certainly in the more regional spaces where people can drive and park their car under the building, and it's very easy to get to. The attendance is slightly higher, and it just comes back to wherever you are, if you're in a big city somewhere and you're relying on public transport, I live in Connecticut, train into New York. The trains haven't quite returned to what they were before COVID. So it's a real effort to get people in. And again, we come back to, if you just use stick, it's not enough. There needs to be something in it for me. We have to earn people's time in the office, and we need to make that time productive. So there is a variance based on location, and the more difficult locations, you have to try harder.
I mean, Trish, if I was to add to that from a technology perspective, we've seen, we've worked with clients that have, probably maybe 10 to 20 attorneys, all the way to thousands, so I think the size, unless you're like one or two attorneys, you probably can just text and say, I'm in, I'm out. But, what I mean? And as soon as it gets bigger than that, then folks again struggle with, just to reiterate this point, this is not about hoteling, this is not about reservation. The thing that we've seen that moves the needle the most is just knowing who's in the office today, who's in the office tomorrow, so I can plan, so I know that I'm not going to an empty space or an half empty space.
Right.
Are there any more questions? Please feel free to add in the chat.
I don't know if I can just speak. This is Tammy. I don't know if you
go
can hear me.
ahead.
Hey, Anthony, good to see you again.
Hi, Tammy.
For future stuff, I think it'd be really cool to hear what you guys think or what you're seeing in the industry about how, okay, so people aren't coming back in the way they were. We know that. Let's just accept it and move on. But what are we doing to create culture outside of the office? Because it used to just happen, right? You were here and it happened, whether it was training, mentoring, water cooler discussion, whatever. I know that we've been focusing on dinners and other things like that, but I'm not suggesting, by the way, to answer it right now on the call. I would just like to see concepts you guys are seeing from other organizations of, is it just, we don't focus so much on the home environment.
Yeah.
There's this concept of it needs to be better in the office. Well, but it needs to be really better at your home too.
Yeah.
And then how are we doing things outside of the office? Because I think there's a balance. Yes, I want to see you, love to see you in the office, but man, I'd like to understand what this new world looks like outside of the office. So
yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think it's probably the area of that needs the most thought and development right now. We've gone straight back to, okay, now we the easiest thing in the world was to get everybody to work from home, and the hardest thing in the world is to get them all back.
Bring them back.
But actually, we all acknowledge we're not going to get them all back, and the main focus has been on how to get them back more than 1 or 2 days a week. But yeah, there's the other 2 or 3 days a week they're at home, and how do we manage that? We're actually doing a lot more off-site events for clients, even at partners' houses, doing catered events in partners' houses, and events near to home. So rather than bringing all the attorneys into Manhattan for events, they might be done in Westchester or something around here. But again, we're still talking about doing things in person, but just somewhere else.
Just somewhere else, something different.
So I do think that there's a gap here to try to develop more things to promote culture remotely. But I frankly got a little fed up of too many Zooms over the 2 or 3 years. So
well, I mean, look, the hybrid environment is the most difficult one for us to manage because being great on both ends is not easy.
Yeah,
agreed.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Tammy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're pretty much done. So somebody asked me recently, when will we know when we've achieved all of our goals? And my answer would be when we stop talking about this. and right now we're still always talking about it a lot. There's still a lot of people spending a lot of time scratching their head on how to get people back an extra half a day a week. And as long as we still keep talking about it, we'll keep sharing insight and trying to help as many ways as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much, Alla, Anthony. It was great.
Thank you.
We appreciate Maptician and Forest Solutions and the support for the Legal Industry Council. On behalf of the LIC, thank you everyone for attending today. It was very informative. I hope that you have at least 1 or 2 takeaways for this. And if we, like I said earlier, please be on the lookout. We'll have another webinar hosted by Maptician on Tuesday, April 18th. So we hope everyone will be planning to join us again at that date and time. So thank y'all so much, and everybody have a great day.